What's good, my dudes? Today I'm going to talk at you about one of my personal favorites from the collection. The stock folds to the left, it's got the thingy on the right. Let's sit down and talk about the little Armalite. Yes, we've got the pleasure of having an AR-180 with us here today, the semi-automatic version of the AR-18 assault rifle, and it's a bit of a rare bird nowadays because it kind of fell into obscurity decades ago, but still manages to pop up in unexpected places. Okay, not that literally, but you get my point. But before I get into this, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's been watching the videos and has been supporting the channel any way they can. The feedback from this community has been nothing but encouraging, and it's been really appreciated. And now back to this aesthetically pleasing hunk of sheet metal and plastic. Designed in the 1960s by former aerospace subsidiary, later turned small arms manufacturer, Armalite, the AR-180 and 18 were intended to be a cheaper and simpler to make alternative to the M16 family of rifles. And just to reiterate, the AR-18 is the fully automatic assault rifle, and the AR-180 is the semi-automatic civilian variant, which I have right here. But cosmetically, they are basically indistinguishable. One has a fire selector that can't go beyond semi-automatic, and the other one looks something like this. I wish I had an AR-18 to show you, but despite my poor impulse control, I am not made of money, and those shitters go on the collector's market for at least $20,000 if you can find one. Actually, on second thought. So ignoring the insanely high collector's prices people pay nowadays, remember, I said these were intended to be the good enough or cheaper, easier to manufacture alternative to the M16, and was more or less intended for sale to foreign militaries that lack provisions to make M16s on their own. The receivers are made of stamped and folded sheet metal, and I'll go ahead and roll some B-roll so you can get a closer look at that. And stamped sheet metal is a practice for manufacturing that was popularized in guns back in World War II, namely with some German designs. It also utilized an improved short-stroke gas piston design that was used in older firearms like this German K-43 from World War II. I mean, just look at them side by side. If that is not a living example of, okay, you can copy my homework, just make it look different, then I don't know what is. Also, it retains similar controls and sights to the more popular M16 with the benefit of a folding stock. Although it feels a little flimsy and cheap, this is still something the M16 at the time was not capable of. This was because the M16's bolt carrier and recoil assembly needs to reciprocate into the stock to function properly. Take away the stock and suddenly that bolt carrier is flying at your face to bust out your front teeth and vibe check your gag reflex. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the AR-180 is... And I forgot to mention the AR-180 is not compatible with AR-15 magazines. Even though they have a similar form factor, there's a different cutout pattern on the AR-180 magazines as opposed to the M16. But if you have the know-how and access to a Dremel tool, you can make the mags fit. Anyway, with all that being said, the AR-18 and AR-180 kind of fell flat. It was never adopted by any major militaries due to the overwhelming popularity of other rifles that were already available. It did see some marginal success in the police and civilian market, but once again, it was largely beat out by other guns that were already around. It would be picked up for manufacturing by a few different companies, namely Armalite, of course, of Costa Mesa, California, Howa of Japan, and the most common manufacturer, Sterling of the United Kingdom, which is what mine is. My camera took a shit. Ooh. I'm back. Well, I thought I was back until the memory card ran out on me. Gave me the whole spiel about milking cigarettes and everything. I got battery issues. But don't worry, I can just fix this all in post, right? I'll make it work. So after a less than stellar run, the AR-18 and AR-180 would cease production with only about 20,000 AR-180s and a little over 1,000 AR-18s being made. But even though it was a commercial failure, it's still beautiful on the inside. No, seriously, the gas system and the bolt mechanism were really good, so they would keep popping up inside of other guns. Rifles like the British L-85, which was literally an AR-18 and a bullpup chassis during its prototype phase, the G36 family of rifles, the FN SCAR, or as I like to call it, Long, Tan, and Handsome, everyone's favorite laser gun from Modern Warfare 2, the ACR, and my favorite bullpup, the Steyr AUG, or AUG, which is unreasonably hard to draw, but that's okay since I have a real one here to show you. And that's roughly half of the well-known designs that carried on the AR-18's legacy, and there's plenty more designs that were less prevalent, but arguably were still used more than the AR-18. There was even one attempt by Armalite themselves to reboot the civilian AR-180, but by then the company had no ties to its former self besides the name. They called it the AR-180B, and it had a lower receiver made out of plastic instead of the stamped sheet metal you're seeing on the standard AR-180. That gun was introduced in the early 2000s, but unsurprisingly, it was a commercial failure. Probably in part due to the fact that the plastic receivers were kind of prone to breaking after not a whole lot of use. And don't get me wrong, I love me some plastic fantastics, but sometimes they just can't be pulled off very well. But after spending the last half century getting figuratively shat on and never really getting a full revival outside of influencing newer designs, there was actually one more attempt at bringing the AR-180 back to the market. No more than a couple years before this video, Brownells released a receiver kit called the BRN-180, and that essentially lets you take an AR-15 lower receiver. I should probably grab one of those actually. Got more guns and brain cells in this room, and I don't have a standard AR-15 in arm's reach apparently. Anyway, Brownells would release a receiver set called the BRN-180, and that allows you to take a standard AR-15 lower receiver and deck it out with AR-180 goodness. It would give standard ARs the gas piston system of the AR-180 and eliminating the need for a buffer tube stock assembly. And from my recollection, they're still fairly popular to this day, and they're making new versions of it as we speak. Or at least I should say at the time of this video, because you could be watching this 5 years from now and I don't want to look like an idiot. Or a bigger one. But hey, if you are watching this 5 years down the road, let past me know how I'm doing. Because right now, as I'm talking, I've tricked 150 of you into liking me. But anyway, it's pretty cool seeing the AR-180 still influencing guns today and kind of making a comeback. It didn't really need to by any means, but someone out there had the appreciation that others didn't and thought it was a valid option. Now you're probably wondering, do I own one of those BRN-180s? No. Like I said earlier, I have poor impulse control, so a lot of my money goes towards stupid shit. Which is a good thing though, because you guys get videos and I get a dopamine rush. So in conclusion, the AR-180 just seemed like something that was never destined to make it. But somehow it clung to life after all these years and got a second shot. But yeah, the AR-180, it's sticking around for now, and I really like that. That's really cool. So hey, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you sitting here till the end and watching the full video. So if you have any opinions on the AR-180, or if you have one yourself, go ahead and tell me about it down below, and feel free to leave feedback on the videos. It does nothing but help the channel grow and helps me improve the next videos as they come down the pipeline. See ya!